All right, so here we are, SoulSet Rising podcast episode 2, back with Dad, Steve Frazier. And today our topic is going to be all around emotions, emotional clearing. I feel like this has been a big topic in the past few years, and maybe it's just because we're seeing it a lot more everywhere, but I think people are really opening up to it and very interested in it because everybody's kind of dysregulated and everybody feels like their life is emotionally traumatic, right? I mean, but honestly, they kind of are, right? We are human beings acting like human doings, and it's taking its toll on our body. Yep. So we're going to talk through some just kind of like how we got into this, why we got into this, why we think it's important today. You want to share a little bit about, you and Brenda and just kind of the beginning of that?
Years ago, quite a few years ago, we were seeing Alex, who was our healthcare provider. And we both ironically came in within a day of each other, maybe even the same day. And she told us both that she couldn't help us because we were emotionally blocked. And we gave her one of those, what are you talking about? looks. And it's that first time that you hear something or you don't know what you don't know. And so I researched, so she said, I can't help you until you get the blocks gone. And so I went out and searched, and I found a practitioner about an hour and a half away. And we saw him 4 times. Brenda and I both did, over a period of, I think, 2.5 weeks. And by the end, we came back and Alex checked us and we were clear. And she had some experience here in having not necessarily practiced it. That's why we went to someone else.
Yeah, we were just getting aware of it.
Aware, correct. That's the best word. So that's how we started. And things changed dramatically in our lives after that. Because then over time, Alex and Brenda, my wife, both figured out how to do this, how to clear. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So would you like to share your story, and then you can talk a little bit about what this is?
Yeah, well, I think, just going back to being emotionally blocked, being blocked by something, there's just things that can create stress on the nervous system so that other things can't happen. So back when we were just learning about emotions and emotional clearing, this, it was like a unknown of what can it do? What can't it do? I didn't even fully really grasp a lot of it until you're quite a ways into it. But just like how we do nutrition with the E=mc² equation and saying okay, energy becomes matter. Usually things are energetic before they manifest physically on the body, which we can kind of get into. But when I got started into natural health and we were kind of all on the same path at the same time, I learned how to test organs, and we were using muscle testing to test organs and to test the stressors, like the barriers to healing. And that was things like viruses, bacteria, fungus, parasites, toxins. And what my original training didn't include was that emotions are another stressor. And so in the beginning, we were just using all of those very nutritional chemical things to help with detoxification, drainage, and support of the body. And a couple years into my practice, I met my mentor, one of my original mentors, and he was, saw him in one city, and about a month later, I saw him in another city. He had put me on a protocol, and he's like, how are you doing? And I said, well, I'm better, but it's just not clicking. My foods just doesn't feel like it's nourishing me. My supplements are just they're not grabbing hold. It didn't feel like. He's like, okay, when we have a break, we're going to go into the hallway and we're going to clear some emotions. And I was like, well, this is interesting because I didn't know anything about it. Right. Yeah. And I had only just met him. This was the second time that I met him. He didn't know much about my life. The kind of brief backstory at the time was just mostly around my marriage being long distance and lots of stress there. And that was kind of all that I had shared. And my nervous system was just all heightened up from that. And so we went into the hallway. He cleared 3 emotions at that time using a technique that he was using. And it was shame in my chin, which is all around the relationship, abandonment, which was also around the relationship. And then he's like, you had a really big emotion in your uterus. And when he cleared it, he actually kind of braced me. And I was like, come on. And then I did feel this really big release and kind of a little bit of a knees weak moment. And you can't really explain it. It's not like a weight off your chest. It's an energy that if I could say that there was a black cloud that went more than a week ahead in time for me that I couldn't see, that cloud completely lifted. I could think past fight or flight. I could think past everything just in that moment. What I hadn't shared with him up until that moment was that we had been trying to have a second baby for 3.5 years. And so I was helping all these people in my practice with fertility, but it wasn't clicking for myself. I was taking the right nutrition, supplements, eating the right way, doing the right things for my body, wasn't getting pregnant. And then he cleared that emotion from my uterus and actually had kind of a physical response to that afterwards. And 2 weeks later, I was pregnant. So that to me was like, okay, we need to know more about this.
That would be an eye opener right there.
Yeah. So then I just quickly learned how to test, like, how do we test for emotional blocks? And then what do we do? Okay. So like for people who have, no idea what this is or why we're doing it, I think it would behoove us.
Great word, behoove.
We should do like we should put like 3 words where we drip it into the podcast and see how we can incorporate these words. Behoove is like
we'll work on that.
One of my favorite words.
Yep.
So it would behoove us now to explain what emotions are and how they get trapped in the body. Okay. Right?
Yep.
So emotions are energy in motion. And so we are energetic beings. Like our dense physical matter is just dense energy. It's just energy in a different form. And so when we have emotional things happen to us, it comes in as this big energy. And if our nervous system is pretty regulated, we will process those emotions and then our body will move them out. Mm-hmm. But if we're in a lot of stress, then those things get trapped. So these emotions should be going in and out like a screen door. So our energy system actually moves in a very specific way. Like we have this torus pattern of energy and we have energy moving in specific ways. And so if you can envision sort of all of this data and memory in your energy field moving through you, and when any big emotion comes into your energy field, what does your body do with it? It's like, well, you have to process it through your nervous system. And then if it gets stuck, it gets trapped there. And it's energy and matter are just different phases. And so what happens, that energy meets the water in your cells and just gets stuck there. And then it kind of even turns into ice. And ice can turn back into water, which can turn back into gas, which is the energy. But if it's trapped in that ice, then it starts to actually create physical ailments in the body. But we don't often associate it. It's like on the last episode when we were talking about, like, you might not think gluten's bad for you because you don't have an immediate response to it.
Right.
But if you stop eating gluten and then start again, you can tell a big difference in how your body actually reacts to that. Not everybody, but just an example.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of has these, and our bodies tend to store different emotions in different places. Mm-hmm. So we store grief in our lungs, we store anger in our liver, fear in our kidneys. If you ever get really cold, that can be fear leaving your body. And so there are so many different ways to clear emotions.
How would somebody know or think that they have emotions stored that they need to get cleared?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those lists that you see on the internet where it's like, if you have this, and it's like anything you can possibly imagine. Are you tired? Can't lose weight? Got bad digestion? Maybe some headaches? And everyone's like, holy shit, that's me.
Yeah,
that's all me.
That is. Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, the symptoms of being emotionally blocked are kind of the same symptoms as the big hitters. Like you need a parasite cleanse, you have candida, the mental clarity piece.
Yeah.
But what I think people who are interested in health are starting to realize is that we are what we eat. Mm-hmm. And we become what is in our awareness. And so emotions are just another piece of that puzzle.
I think that as a layman, because I'm not a practitioner, Alex is, my wife is, so I'm around this all the time. I think it comes down to if you're off, and see, I have the benefit of having my wife there all the time.
Yeah.
So I just say, would you check me? because there's something wrong. I have a weight on my shoulders. I have a weight on my heart. It doesn't matter. There's something that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 out of 10 times, I'll have an emotion that she can clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then that 10th time, she'll just look at me and she say, "Oh, it's just the moment.
Just the day." Yeah.
And you just have to suck it up, buttercup, and move on because...
Yeah, and there are definitely around the emotional clearing conversation, just the interesting thing is like let's say you're heartbroken, right? Getting your emotions cleared does not take away that pain.
Right.
It doesn't take away the memory. It doesn't take away the process. If you're in grief, there's a healthy grieving process, right? And it's not linear, but most people know that there's different steps and stages to it. What happens though is if you're under severe stress during one of those steps and you're not allowed to grieve properly, then some of those things like anger or denial or those can be trapped. So I also think it's kind of interesting to put a vocabulary around the difference between negative emotions and positive emotions and how our body kind of offsets things and how it all is about the vibration. So kind of like how, organic fruits and vegetables, grass-fed steak, these would all be like high vibration foods that make you a high vibration person.
I'm going to stop right here because this is an interesting. 6.5 years ago, her youngest son, Bodie, would come to our house regularly. He was like 1.5. And he was at home with Alex, and she offered him a banana, and it was not organic. And he just pushed it off to the side.
Ate everything else.
Yeah. And he came over to our house, and we had organic bananas, and Brenda handed it to him, and he scarfed the whole thing.
I thought he just didn't like bananas anymore.
Right. He knew intuitively tell that he shouldn't eat the first banana and the second banana was okay.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, as a youngster, you have a lot more abilities on
well, you
some
still
of this.
have all those primal instincts in you. And then as you get a taste for all the processed stuff and the fake stuff and the sugar, as you get a taste for that, it deadens all of those other instincts. And we got to get kind of back there, but I think mindfulness has a lot to do with that. You know, if you sit down and look at your plate of food and you look at a plate of a colorful plate of food that has healthy fats and protein, and you look at it and you know if that's going to nourish your body. And if you look at a plate of pizza and chocolate cake, like if you sit long enough and look at it, your body will be like, don't fucking eat that. I mean, maybe like, of course we want it, but intuitively, your body knows that it doesn't, and you're not going to feel good. One of those meals, you're going to get up and go for a walk after. One of those meals, you're going to lay on the couch and not really move after.
Yeah.
And that's honestly epigenetics in motion, which just another topic. But high vibe food, low vibe food, high vibe emotions, low vibe emotions. One of the there's just some interesting little isms. So, did you know that black, especially synthetic black, blocks energy?
No. I guess you'll never see me in this again.
But we intuitively wear black when we want to block our energy, which I think is traditionally how that became the attire for funerals. And flowers have the highest vibration of anything on the planet.
Wow. And
so why would you want to be surrounded by flowers? And so when they say in lieu of flowers, it's like, no, send the flowers.
Yeah.
Because flowers have the highest vibration. There's something about it. You can't deny that when you stick your face in a bouquet of flowers, you feel a little bit better, even if only for an instant. But that's because the vibration of those flowers are really high. And they all carry a vibration of that. So everything has this frequency and vibration. There's a book called Power versus Force, which explains some, and I think the other book that he has, this is Dr. David Hawkins, it might be called Map of Consciousness Explained, but it's something like that. And so it actually quantifies the emotions. And so you have your low vibe emotions and then you have your high vibe emotions. And so the low is, guilt, shame, pride, jealousy, envy, overwhelm, shame, guilt. Did I say that? Anyways, low vibe emotions. And then up here you have like peace, love, authenticity, joy. You have all your positive emotions. Well, this neutral point is courage. So courage, like if you can get to courage, you can work your way through anything. But I think when you're having the emotional conversation and saying like, just clear my emotions, just get rid of them. right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not really it. You're trying to actually just move up that tone scale because anger is higher on that scale than grief, which is why if you look at the grieving process, like the steps of it, yes, it's not linear. You can jump around, but anger is a little bit higher of a vibration than grief. And so when you start to actually be mad that it happened, that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to be able to say, we can explain this with science.
Yep.
And the cool part about explaining like something like this with science is like, people are so much more open to this now. You know, like we're so used to biology, chemistry, Western medicine is just like, this does this. Might create these other issues over here, but it's a linear process. We can't explain a lot.
Yeah, we're not going over there.
But it will lower your blood pressure. It will lower your cholesterol, right? Like it's very linear, and our bodies aren't really like that. So just understanding the vibrations of things and like what's actually going on in our body, I think is it's just powerful to have that like that knowingness. And I know like when Brenda got into emotional clearing, she started to realize that if she didn't clear herself all the time, she wasn't getting better. So going back to like your original story, the supplements work, and it's not like I couldn't help them at all. But it's like I knew it wasn't going to work like it should until the emotions were cleared.
What Brenda discovered in this process was that she's a really strong empath. And I think if you're going to be a practitioner or try to help other people, you don't necessarily have to be an empath to help yourself. There's things you can do for yourself. But if you want to help other people, or if you want to be helped by someone, it helps if that person is an empath. And how we discovered this years, I think over 6 years ago, we were in Washington, D.C., and we were on the mall, and we were going to different food kiosks just for water, soda, food. And 2 times in a period of an hour, she said to me, "We have to get out of this line right now. I can't stand it." There was something there. The energy there was bad. And then we went into the Holocaust Museum. And just the words bring about grief and sadness and depression. So we walked in there, and she made it 20 minutes. She said, "I have to leave right now." Because the sadness was so overwhelming to her. And what we determined as we talked about this was that for her ever be effective to help other people, she had to be able to shield herself from all the negative emotions in the world. And what happens is if you clear people and you choose to absorb their emotions, you can't, if somebody doesn't clear you, you're carrying all of these. So she figured out how to put up shields, and she does this every day, every morning, every night.
Yeah, because that's a big question. Everyone's like, how do I do that? How do I protect myself against energy?
And she actually does this when she clears. She tells people how to do this. It's not a secret, but you have to work on this.
Yeah, it's a
and
practice.
Once she had figured out how to not absorb the emotions, she then created her own technique, which is different. Probably everybody that does this is a little bit different.
Yeah. But you think, it has to be, you have to go get certified in this. It's like, well, a human created that.
Right.
A human created, it's like, a human created the certification process to tell someone that they're magically qualified to do this. It's like, if you don't have a clue, that can be very useful. But you have people like Brenda who are just like God-given gifts from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
She is doing her own thing, and she's, is it replicatable or duplicatable? Probably not very effectively.
Right.
Maybe through me and her because we're really connected, and hopefully over time through people because we have this like osmosis thing. But I think just going into like the whole shields thing and like people saying, well, how to put up my shields? She does it every day and every night. And you know this, he lives with her, right? So he sees her, and it's like, who do I have to clear today to stay clear myself? It's the same when you get into the emotional work. It's like you don't eat one healthy meal and then you don't have to eat healthy again.
Right.
You don't go do one workout and now you don't have to work out again.
Okay.
If you want to stay in shape.
Say that again.
If you want to stay in shape, you got to keep working out. If you want to stay healthy, you got to keep eating healthy.
Right.
And so if you want to keep your shields up, you got to keep putting them up.
Yeah.
You have to create a strong intention. The power of intention is super powerful. We should do a whole episode on the power of intention.
Yeah.
I do a whole, I have an entire course curriculum around that in SoulSet Rising in our membership program. But Brenda is what we do. It combines science, like the linear science that you're expecting. It's an art. It's an art form that you have to like practice, and
Right.
and there's the art has the nuance, and then it's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And so anybody can learn the science. People can sort of like learn into the art and whatever, and you have to have the gift. So there's just a unique, and the fact that Brenda and I have been together kind of, I want to go back to the emotional empath, because if you have been on, Facebook or Instagram recently, empathy is kind of a, everybody's an empath now.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Everybody. But we are as humans.
Right.
And we really are. But it's like, people are like, I just really do it. And it's like, that's not a superpower. Let's not own that shit. That's like saying I have diarrhea every day or I have a headache every day because I'm doing good things. It's like saying, I'm so sensitive to what other people's emotions. And so it affects me. It's like, cool. But then like, also let's not do that. Right. So like, right. To sort of point out, because anytime you can like put a vocabulary word on something and then have like this kind of like lesson on it of like the awareness around how to look at it, you can see it differently. And so, when we were in one of your meetings with, during COVID and all of the, kind of political, everything, Dad had formed this group and they still meet. In 2022, we had 14 people out of that group elected to local politics, totally different, different topic. But there was a guy there one night and he said something and he's like, empathy has only been in the dictionary for like less than 100 years. Mm-hmm. Do you know what has been in the dictionary forever? Compassion. So there's a big difference. Like empathy can be a superpower if it is honed properly. Mm-hmm. But compassion is really the superpower. If you saw someone in a big hole, lately everything in my life is like the analogies are all about these big holes. Yeah. But if you have this big hole and you see someone in the hole, empathy is jumping into the hole. Now you're both in there. Nobody can get out. Everything sucks. You're both in the hole and you're like, I'm here. I'm here with you. It's like, well, now you're both in the hole. That's empathy. Mm-hmm. Compassion is like, I see you in that hole. I can't imagine what it's like to be in the hole. I'm gonna give you my hand, and if we need to get a rope, we're gonna get a rope, and we're gonna try to pull you up, and we're gonna talk about it on the way and say, why? How'd you end up in the hole? How do you want to get out of the hole? Can I help you? Mm-hmm. Right? That's compassion. So different little topic than clearing emotions, but just I still think powerful because these are the tools that help you stay on top of things so that you don't end up in this cycle of empathy. And now you can't tell what's yours and what's someone else's. Because how often when Brenda's clearing stuff, did it not come from you?
Right.
A lot.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
A lot. And that's all of us. That is all of us.
Right.
Brenda is a much stronger. There should be another word for the level of empathy that she has. And she also can do what I do.
Yeah.
And she is just very gifted in that way.
So what happens is that you get emotions, you absorb emotions from the people that are around you. Mm-hmm. And so if, as an example, 2 weeks ago, Brenda got really sick and then I got sick. And Alex tested me and she said, well, you have empathy sickness.
Sympathy.
You're
sympathetic sick, Dad.
Oh, man.
I'm like, you're not sick.
And I felt terrible. Okay. Yeah. And Brenda kind of looked at me and said, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, okay, because we're in the bed together. We're together all day most of the time. And sometimes I have just absorbed this.
Well, you went to the vibration of it. You can only ever get what you meet the frequency of and the vibration of. You didn't get sick. You met her vibration.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just like anything else, like even cancer, like you don't get it unless you meet the vibration of it.
Yeah.
And that's not saying that it's like, oh, well, dumbass, you shouldn't have done that. Like, that's not the point. Yeah. We all do all of these things all of the time. Yeah. So helping with the clearing of the emotions and just starting that process, I think is just also needs that reminder or awareness around the fact that this is so incredibly powerful. And you will have those times where you have a huge release like I did with getting pregnant. Mm-hmm. And then you will have the times where like, okay, fine tuning, go about my life. But it's like going and having a good workout. Mm-hmm. You don't get some crazy different result from one workout. You don't get a crazy result from drinking enough water one day. You have to continue to do it. I think a lot of people now, this is my perception based on my own beliefs and what I see on social media, is that people want emotional clearing to be the smoking gun.
Yeah.
Right? And has it been that for us? It has been a definite part of it, but we've also continued that practice.
What's amazing about getting cleared is that sometimes, and it affects everybody differently. And, again, I have the luxury of getting cleared whenever I need. And so sometimes that's once a week, sometimes that's 2 weeks. But so over the last 5 years, I've been cleared a few times.
Yeah.
Probably 100, 200 times, right? Probably 3 or 4 of those times, I had that instant gratification.
Yeah.
That would be the term.
Almost like a Kundalini awakening sometimes.
It's amazing. It is. And then other times, she'll just look at me and say, okay, you're cleared. And then over time, maybe over the day, over 2 days, I'll be better. Or maybe I won't even have a conscious realization of what happened. But somehow, deep down, I know that I'm better. Okay, because I am better. Because remember, when I started, we talked about that gut feeling. It's that feeling. And all of a sudden, that feeling's not there anymore.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that word, because this is a big point I wanted to talk about in this topic. Like, definitely, this is our first episode in kind of a series of this topic, but emotions versus feelings, okay? So emotions come at us because of a quick response. It puts us into this fight or flight, and then our body has to figure out what to do with this, right? So if it's like we have a tragedy and we have grief, or we have this like fight and now we have shame or guilt, those emotions are actually really involuntary because we're co-creating this experience. We can say, oh, I'm not going to ever feel that. Well, consciously, great, but our subconscious is running the show. We can explain that. So the emotions come quick, but then every human being has the ability to decide what their feelings are about that.
Right.
So what's the story you're going to tell about that story? And then the feelings now are the things that can stay. So you can reframe a lot of things, right?
Right.
And you can decide what your choice to feel about that is. So a lot of where people will get stuck in, and their subconscious is like, this is happening to you. Like, why is everything bad? I have terrible luck, right? Because the subconscious is like just trying to keep you small, make sure you know where you stand in the hierarchy of everything, which is nowhere. Yeah. And the reality is that we get to choose our feelings. So we all are going to have negative emotions. We didn't come here to have perfect lives. So you have a negative emotion, you get to decide your feeling about it. So that's where having something like SoulSet Rising and the people that we have in our membership group, we talk through like, how do we create better feelings about our emotions instead of staying stuck in them? Because when we own the emotion, guess what it's going to do? It's going to dig deeper into our cells. Yeah. And your cells remember. Your cells remember how to be fat, sick, unhealthy, and unhappy. They remember all those things. It's kind of like almost like the default, unless you change the default. Right. So when you have your emotional clearing, and if you have someone else do it, or if you do it yourself, and we're not trying to take anybody's power away. You don't have to have somebody else do it, but a lot of times it is very helpful. We are here to need each other. Right. And when you find the right practitioners that can help you, that's really, really powerful. But you can also do it yourself. I was trying to finish a thought and then I forgot what I was talking about. But
can't help you there.
Yeah, right. But the emotional clearing basically takes a layer off, or maybe takes an edge off, or gets you to where you can have a better understanding of what you are consciously choosing. Yep. Right? So you're an expert on subconscious. Right. And because that plays into so much self-sabotage. Yep. So how could self-sabotage create a loop of emotional issues?
You continually undermine your own values. And when you do that subconsciously, you're damaging yourself. Okay? You know it. You know, I have a challenge with food, right? I'm overweight, but I'm not obese. I want to eat all the time. And when I
inherited that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens is that when I eat, and I'm a self-saboteur type, is overindulger. And what that does is that means when I start to eat, I just can't stop, and I just say, and because I justify it through my subconscious mind. Well, I ate this, so what's the difference if I have 2 more donuts? It doesn't matter because I already blew it. Okay? That is self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And what that does, that can stay with you. And obviously, if you don't break out of it, if you can't deal with it, then you gain a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And you just feel worse and worse and worse about yourself. And that, you can call that a feeling, but you can work on all these things, and that through emotional clearing. But there's other ways. There are other ways to deal with some of this.
Because you say that, but what people on the other side aren't realizing is how much better you are.
Right.
How much better you are.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, we worked on emotional clearing and you graduated after 12 months and now you don't ever overindulge. I mean, we talked about addiction on the other episode, and it's a lifelong battle and journey for everybody. And so humans have themes. Yep. Humans all have themes. And honestly, I'm the longer I do my work, which is like natural health, which is meeting people physically where they're at and their ailments and their emotions, I'm starting to think that people who just have it really good and who have been healthy the whole time and sort of like lived in this upper, high vibe emotions all the time, whatever, I'm starting to think this is kind of boring.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's sort of in my belief system that our souls need to learn lessons. And so we challenge ourselves. And I think just based on conversations with my oldest son and his conversations with God before he came here, I think him and God had a plan. And I think that, we went through that vaccine injury so that I could recover him and then use my voice for that. Yep. But it's what else did we come here to say? I'm going to learn this. I'm going to try to figure out this. I'm going to try to master this. And maybe you figure it out, maybe you don't. God doesn't care. Right. But we all have these things. So this is another tool. And because we have our health, we have our mindset, we have our emotions. Inside of the health, we have your structural, your chemical, and your emotional, and they all play in. And so if you have trapped emotions, or if you are not choosing to create healthier feelings, right? This is obviously relative.
Yep.
If you're not choosing to do those things, it will eventually affect the rest of your life. And so emotional clearing is just a tool that we use. And it's something that people forever since we introduced it, are really resonating with, because they can feel the difference, and they can start to understand what it's like when they, get something that's more stuck.
Yeah. So there's some differences between emotional clearing and regular therapy.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of ironically funny is that when people talk about, when they come in, example with my wife, they come in for a session, and oftentimes they will talk to her for 10 to 20 minutes before the session starts, because this is the therapy
30-minute session.
Yeah.
It's important to note.
Right. Yeah.
Because what Brenda does doesn't require talking.
No.
But humans do.
Humans, right.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going with that, is that they want to talk to somebody. They want to get cleared, and they know the clearing is why they're there.
Yeah.
But they also want to talk to somebody, and Brenda happens to be a very sympathetic ear.
Well, yeah, because she can understand what they're feeling. She knows she can help them.
Yeah.
And she knows how powerful it is to be validated and heard. Yeah. And not to say, oh, I own this, I am this, I whatever. We don't want to let people stay stuck in their stories.
Right.
But we do need that. But, traditional talk therapy, it's not a this or that, I think. It's not like emotional clearing is oh, just your therapist is pointless. Don't do it. You can just get your emotions cleared. No.
Because it's two separate things.
Totally. Apples and oranges. Right. And so some people don't feel the need to do one or the other if they have what they feel good about. Right. But for a lot of people, it's well, it's not a competition. So emotional clearing stands on its own.
Right.
Talk therapy is you're consciously creating and trying to repattern thoughts, right? Consciously. Emotional clearing actually helps on that subconscious level. Yep. And so in reality, 95 to 99% of our thoughts we think and our actions and behaviors are based on our subconscious. Yep. And, so if we have 70,000 thoughts in a day, 65,000 of them are not original.
Right.
And so if you're talking it out, you can chip away at it using the conscious thought. But even when people are talking, usually they'll end up saying the same thing,
Yep.
right? Still saying the same thing. So unless you change what you're saying and actually make progress in that way to where you're changing what you're saying and you're changing the story for the future, that is still hardly tapping into or making an impact on the subconscious. It does feel better though. But when you clear the emotions, you're clearing out subconscious patterns and programming, and you're like literally rewiring and retraining the cells to remember something different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's significantly different. They're both good. They're both important. And how do you take care of yourself? We talk about seeing Alex, seeing Brenda. There's different books out there. You can talk, you can tap. We're going to talk a little bit about tapping and things a little bit later on remedies. But what can you actually do for yourself? And there's a lot of different things. You can do breath work, you can do journaling, meditation, prayer, and hypnotherapy. Because once again, there we're going into the subconscious, okay? And that's where some of this stuff may be, right? Or then you can go into actual clearing energy work, okay? Which, if you can learn it and figure it out, you can do it, okay? Brenda did it on her own. So did Alex. But you have to have a plan.
And you have to have an awareness and understanding of all the pieces of enough of the pieces of the puzzle.
Right. Yep.
And I think humans, we expect to work really hard for something and then you get the result and then you have it.
Yep.
So I think the reminder or the permission here is that you have to be willing to show up.
Yep.
That's the reminder. And then the permission is you also have to allow it to be easy. You have to allow it to happen.
Yep.
So I know Brenda's had this and I've had this where people won't let go of the emotions.
Right.
They consciously are choosing to continue to hold them. And there are very valid reasons for doing that. Like some people feel like if they let go of the grief, they let go of the memory.
Yeah.
And that is as real to them as the sky is blue.
Right.
And so you can't take that away from them.
Nope.
You can just walk them on that journey, but you do have to, if you're going to show up and you want it to work, you do have to allow it to work. You have to allow it to be easy. You have to allow it to happen.
Right.
You can't think it's not like, the actual solution is more exotic than this. It has to be more expensive than this. It has to be something else. I got to go do ayahuasca in Costa Rica. I got to go do some shamanic healing journey. All of those things are great. I wouldn't discourage any people from going on those types of missions for themselves. But the truth is it's so much simpler than that.
Right. One of the things that I found after watching and speaking with Brenda about her sessions, one, she has a number of people that see her regularly. And
she's booked out 3 months right now.
For lack of a better word, they are empaths that haven't put up shields.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is that they go in society, and this can be anywhere from a 6-year-old little girl to an 80-year-old man or woman, okay? Because that the whole gamut there. But they pick up all these things from other people that they're sometimes family members maybe, but just kids at school or at work or just in the grocery store. And they have found the relief to their pain.
Yes. And it's not like, they should just put their shields up. There's no shame or judgment around this. We do need each other. It's a beautiful thing that they have found Brenda.
Yeah.
And can allow her to let it be easier for them.
Yeah.
We all have these like soul contracts with each other, and sometimes we exchange currency for them. Sometimes we exchange energy. Sometimes we exchange services or whatever it might be, right? So people pay Brenda to get their emotions cleared, and she provides this beautiful gift to them that some people need once in their life, some people need twice a year, and some people come in every 6 to 8 weeks.
Right. It's kind of interesting on the reaction that people have when they come in. And you should be aware of this, because if you ever think you're going to do this, a number of people fall asleep.
Yeah.
And she clears them while they're sleeping. Now, granted, they're on a heated mat, and so it's very comfortable. But there are times when they're awake, they will actually tell her that they can feel the emotions leave. On more than one occasion, people will break down in tears.
Yeah, because that's a process.
And once in a while, laughter, because that's an emotional, that's releasing those emotions. And we all express that relief in different ways.
Yeah, I've coughed it out for people.
Right. Yep. So, I mean, it all depends on the individual because we're all different and everybody is going to react to this a little differently.
Yeah.
I would say over probably hundreds of people that she has cleared. There's only, I'm guessing, just one person I think that was ever just looked at her and said, this didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it may have worked a couple of days, it may have kicked in, but.
And I think the thing there too to remember is that clearing emotions cannot create other issues, but it can unlock some things that were already there, which is honestly a beautiful thing because then it's coming out instead of manifesting physically. But then people are like, now I'm crying again.
So, exactly. It's a circle that they feel that it's a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because as those emotions get cleared and they're released, they have this feeling and they don't have, and that's why everybody expresses it differently.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had this sense of walking on air, right? And that's just personally, but everybody's different. But those 3 times or 4 times that I've actually felt it, it was kind of like when Alex had
really
it,
in tune with the energy.
with her uterus clearing.
Yep.
Where it was just
really?
wow, just in your face. Wow, you really had something there. So why don't we wrap up? We're going to wrap up this session, and then we're going to come back for part 2. Yeah. And we're going to talk about what Alex uses, what Brenda uses, and then some other tools that you can use in emotional clearing. So we will see you shortly.
More stories coming.
Yep. Emotional clearing part 2 is on the way.